Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another PS5 jailbreak news update. So Spectre has been on a roll lately as we now have more firmwares ported over to the PS5. So the UMTX jailbreak now supports firmwares all the way up to 5.50, meaning that the latest jailbreakable firmware is no longer 4.51, it's now 5.50. Now there are a couple of caveats to that. We don't have the libhijacker yet to turn this into a proper jailbreak. So we need to make sure that that can actually be ported up to 5.50 before we can definitively say that we do have like a jailbreak on 5.50. And there's a couple of other things in there as well. But initially it started off here with the 2.x firmwares being added just a couple of days ago. Then yesterday we got the 1.x firmwares also added to the project. And now you can see what the list looks like now. So we've got 3.x all the way up to 5.50. So 3.0 all the way up to 5.50. So even if you're on the previous jailbreaks, you can actually run this now and test the stability and compare it to the previous jailbreak to see how much more stable this version is. According to Spectre, it's very stable on 1.x and 2.x, which I can confirm from running it on my 2.30 system. But he did say that there are some additional mitigations on 3.x onwards that could cause a kernel panic every now and then, meaning it's not as stable on the higher firmwares as it is on 2.x and 1.x, but it may still be quite a bit more stable than the previous jailbreak that we've had up until now on the 3.x to 4.x firmwares. So that's what we have here. Now there are some caveats to this as well. So Spectre has said pushed version 1.2 exploits been updated with an implementation that works on 3.x to 5.x, keep spray go burr. Also some support for other MISC low firmware, meaning I guess some of the obscure firmwares. And then elf loader and payloads will not work on 5.0 plus for a while due to DLSYM changes. Payload SDK needs changes. So this is also reiterated by Zeko. He says DLSYM tricks are patched as of 5.x. So expect a very painful PS5 payload SDK being developed in the near future. DLSYM has been patched as of 5.x and higher. And the problem is that that was relied upon for the payloads. So now it's not just a simple case of porting the payloads from, older firmwares to newer firmwares. This issue now needs to be worked around. And I guess maybe a new format for the payloads might have to be made in order to get payloads working again on these higher firmwares. So that's another reason why we can't really call it a jailbreak yet until we have workable payloads. But I mean, we should get there eventually. It may just take a little bit longer because either the existing payloads can be modified to work, or whether or not a whole new payload SDK needs to be developed from scratch with a whole new format for the payloads, in which case that might take a little bit longer before we see working payloads on these higher firmwares from 5.0 up to 5.50. Obviously, we're still waiting for 6.0 to 7.61. That could happen with a Blu-ray drive implementation or maybe a future WebKit implementation, but that is still definitely on the cards. It's just right now we have a working implementation up to 5.50. So once again, to run this on your system, if you've never run the exploit before, all you have to do is head on over to your system settings, go down to system, go to system software update and settings, disable download update files automatically and install update files automatically. Make sure both of those are unchecked. Then you can connect up to your network, go to settings and go to set up an internet connection. And then from here, you can select Wi-Fi or wired, go to advanced settings, and then set a manual DNS server. And the DNS address you want to use is going to be Nomadic's DNS. And Nomadic's DNS is going to be 62.210.38.117. So enter that in as your primary DNS and then click OK. That will also block system updates as well. So once you have that enabled, you can then go onto the user guide and it should redirect you onto EchoStretch's host. If it doesn't take you there straight away, all you have to do is log out and log back into your profile and then go to the user guide and you'll be able to get on there. Or if you're not able to use a custom DNS address, which can sometimes happen if your ISP blocks it and you just get a blank page whenever you try to go to the user guide, you can set your DNS back to automatic again and then go back on the regular user guide, and then you can navigate through the different pages on the regular user guide to get onto the Google search engine and then search for the website manually that way. It takes a bit longer, but you can also use that method to get access to the exploit page. And then from there, you just want to search around on the website and look for the UMTX option, wherever that is, and run Spectre's UMTX jailbreak. There may also be an idle source or a Zeko version as well that you could try. But for now anyway, we can run Spectre's UMTX jailbreak, and then that will get it up and running. And you can see that I'm on firmware 4.03 when I'm doing the test here, and the exploit runs just fine on 4.03. I found it to be more stable and even runs a little bit faster most of the time than the previous jailbreak. So I think once this fully matures, we'll probably switch over to using this as the primary method for loading the jailbreak, even for firmwares that already had the previous jailbreak available. So yeah, that's basically it. Now, because there's no payloads available yet, you're only going to be able to unlock the debug settings. So once it says that the ELF loader is running, that means that you have the jailbreak up and running. You can then press the PS button to exit, go back out to the home menu, and then go back into the settings again. And then from there, you should have access to the debug settings, which lets you know that the kernel exploit was loaded successfully. So that is the general test of the exploit so far. So you can give this a try, especially if you're on a 5.x firmware. Give it a try, see if it works. Most of the people who have tested on 5.x so far seem to be able to get it up and running no problem. So far so good. So a couple of other things to mention. There's actually been some more developments related to PS5, not just with the actual jailbreak here. So we got this tweet here from Boris Larin. He says that beyond Oberon, exploiting PS5's EFC and EMC by Sean Hoffman, and he links to a conference that is taking place. So this is SAS 24, Kaspersky Security Analyst Summit, and there is a interesting speaker on here. If we scroll down, we've got Sean Hoffman, who is doing a talk on exploiting PlayStation 5's EFC and EMC. So it says here that Sean has experience exploiting a variety of targets, but game consoles have always held a special interest. The talk will provide a high-level overview of the PlayStation's architecture of the PlayStation 5 console, with focus on the EFC/EAP Titania and EMC Selena chips. Exploits allowing code execution on these chips will be detailed along with a release of a tool which implements the exploits. The process of initial exploitation/discovery will also briefly be covered. For a security researcher's point of view, the exploits are interesting as they cover a hard-to-spot bug in a firmware state machine and abusing hardware misconfiguration to bypass memory protection measures. The exploits/tooling allow for further research into the system. So that is what's going on there. Now, the reason why Sean Hoffman is interesting is the fact that he is apparently a member of Fail Overflow. I think he's the one that actually posted the UMTX implementation that Fail Overflow had for years, and they just posted it once the FreeBSD bug became public. So the one that could run in a virtual machine, I believe it was him that actually posted that. So we don't really know if this is going to create any kind of major benefit in terms of hacking the PlayStation 5. The chips that are mentioned here, the Titania or Selena chips, Titania one, I believe, is the SSD controller, and I think the Selena one is the Southbridge chip. Now, of course, the big concern with these conferences is that sometimes you get a conference like TyphoonCon, where we never get any information about anything that was discussed in the talks. They were essentially private, and nothing was really made public about the Flows talk that he did at TyphoonCon, which was unfortunate. And this looks like it may be a closed-door conference. However, perhaps, it might be one of those situations where, if the talker gives permission for the talk to be made public, then perhaps it will be, and then we could actually see it and get some more information. It does mention something about a release of a tool which implements the exploits, so perhaps that will be a public release, which could perhaps be utilized by other security researchers in the scene to try and find other hardware level vulnerabilities that they can exploit in the PS5. So the PlayStation 5 talk here is taking place on Wednesday, October 23rd. You can see here we have Sean Hoffman doing his talk at 12:40. So that is when that is going to be taking place. So definitely something interesting, something to keep an eye on. And it's also of note that it was actually originally, I think, posted or pointed towards by Boris Larin, who is somebody who is well known in the scene for doing hardware level hacks, particularly with the Blu-ray drive in the PS4 back in the day. In fact, he's actually had several HackerOne bug bounty reports that have resulted in very high bounties, but they were never released. We've all presumed it had something to do with hacking the Blu-ray drive in the PS4. Now, staying on the topic of conferences, we also have ROM Hack 2024. This is now coming up very soon. So the 28th of September, the Flow is going to be doing a talk on PlayStation 4 remote kernel exploitation. This is likely going to be the same talk he did back at TyphoonCon a few months ago, which never got released. So hopefully this one will get released. It looks like ROM Hack do post their talks to YouTube a while afterwards. so we'll likely get access to this talk at some point, and we're hoping that he might discuss the PS5 at least somewhat, at least the viability of trying to implement the pp-pwn exploit that recently got released for the PS4, which resulted in a new jailbreak for the PS4. We know the PS5 is also vulnerable to that exploit up to firmware 8.20, so we want to see if there's any viability there in implementing that exploit on the PS5, because we haven't heard anything so far, just that, you know, because of the additional security measures that the PS5 has, it may not be possible, but it would be nice to hear from the Flow himself what he thinks about the viability of trying to implement that exploit on the PlayStation 5. So that is also coming up very soon. So anyway, that pretty much does it here for this update. Hope you guys enjoyed it or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And once again, I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.